They killed his teenagers decades ago and have been locked up for life. But the Supreme Court says these convicted murderers deserve a second chance.
But prosecutors are saying not so fast to letting them out. I talked with two convicted murderers on the inside who are already feeling the effects of what's happening on the outside.
A heinous crime.
Each and every one of these individuals was convicted of first-degree murder.
An underage killer.
It's a terrible mistake. You know, every day I wish I could take it back.
And a high court ruling offering a second chance.
It's a blessing to be in a position, and it's a blessing to get the opportunity.
Hundreds of Michigan prisoners sentenced to life without parole as juveniles, getting a message from the Supreme Court. You deserve a second chance of freedom, but only in the rarest of cases should you not be resentenced to a chance at parole. But as the I-Team discovered, that's not always happening, and we wanted to find out why.
He shot 6 people in cold blood in a house while they slept. It doesn't get any colder than that.
That, a shooting on Russell Street, one of 26 cases Genesee County prosecutor David Layton put under the microscope. It was one of Flint's most horrific crime scenes. 6 people murdered in 1987 at the hands of a juvenile, 17-year-old Terry Morris.
There was overwhelming evidence that Terry Morris was the murderer of all 6 people. And I'm going to stand by that in court.
Layton standing by his recommendation to keep Morris, now 47 years old, behind bars for life, instead of following the Supreme Court's ruling to resentence him to 25 to 60 years with the chance of parole.
We decided, case by case, which ones we should petition for a reinstatement of the life without parole, and which ones we should determine and ask for a term of years.
That ruling in only the rarest of cases should a juvenile murderer not be considered for a new sentence. Layton recommending less than 5 of 26 receive less than life. One of those the I-Team discovered, Thomas Armstrong. In an unprecedented interview from inside the prison walls, he spoke to me on the phone.
Any immature child that's out in the streets can happen too. And I was just happy to be one of them.
Armstrong, 15 years old when he was convicted of the murder of Eric Watson in 1989. He was one of 3 teenagers involved in the deadly burglary. After 27 years, he's the only one still locked up.
We just need that second chance, and I do believe that everybody deserves that second chance. Everybody is not, committed a crime is not a monster.
With Layton's recommendation, a judge resentencing Armstrong to 28 years.
So that means in 10 months, he gave him 28 years with credit for 27 years and 2 months. So he's got 10 months left.
A chance at parole, a chance that looks to be a hard-fought battle for another juvenile murderer, James Washington. It was 1999, and the then 17-year-old Washington killed Joseph Kinville in the backyard of a Saginaw home on Stone Street. Washington also speaking to the I-Team from inside the prison.
Just thinking back to when I was in the streets and people looked up to me and I was doing negative things. For years now, I've been doing positive. I've been trying to right my wrong, if you will.
Washington says he's not that killer kid anymore. He's 34, mentors youth, volunteers in prison, takes classes. But still, the Saginaw County prosecutor has recommended his sentence to life stick.
Sorry for what I did, and I truly apologize for what I did, and I'm very remorseful for what I did, and I live my life differently because of what I did.
He will now have to fight that recommendation in front of a judge. He's one of 21 cases under review in Saginaw County, 2 in Bay County, 4 in Shiawassee, and again, Genesee County with the most in our area at 26.
There are no second-degree murder cases. There are no carjackers, armed robbers, burglars, larceny in a building. We don't have any of that. These are all first-degree murder.
And Layton says he's not defying the Supreme Court with his recommendations, saying he's speaking for the victims who are no longer here to stand up for what's right.
I understand that teenagers may not be fully developed, but you have to balance that with the heinousness of the crime.
strong arm of the law tipping the scales of justice.
These are first-degree murder cases. These are the worst of the worst.
A public defender fighting for balance after a high court ruling.
Who you are at 16, 17 is not who you're going to be at 40.
And a convicted murderer weighing a chance at freedom.
I'm working to have people forgive me, but right now I'm asking for mercy.
The Supreme Court says juveniles who commit murder should have a second chance at freedom at some point in their life, even years after their conviction. The ruling based on science. They say a child's brain is more susceptible to peer pressure, has poor impulse control, but is capable of rehabilitation. But as you'll see, that ruling isn't so black and white.
He's really grown up into a responsible 40-something-year-old man who recognizes the horrible mistake he made.
Sophia Nelson says she would have no problem living next door to convicted murderer Eddie Spiller. That is, if he's ever granted a chance at freedom.
Has turned his life around and desperately hopes for a second chance.
Ms. Nelson relentlessly fighting for a lesser sentence for 42-year-old Spiller. Spiller serving life for a crime he committed at 17 years old. It was the perfect plan, robbing a known drug dealer, Ricky Taylor, and the three conspirators would split the loot. But the plan took a deadly turn.
The drug deal robbery turned into a homicide. Mr. Spiller shot the victim through the back of the head and killed him.
Genesee County Prosecutor David Layton says the other two defendants guilty of armed robbery or second-degree murder. But Spiller pulled the trigger, and the juvenile, the youngest of the trio, locked up for life.
I don't think it's fair to say we're being unreasonable. I don't think it's fair for those out there to say, well, you're defying the Supreme Court.
But that's exactly what Nelson believes prosecutors are doing. She's not only representing Spiller, but the State Appellate Defender's Office is taking on the cases of some 200 of more than 300 inmates in Michigan, all of them sentenced to life as juveniles.
Prosecutors are supposed to exercise their discretion within the law, and the law says that only the very rarest of juveniles who are irreparably corrupt can have a sentence of life without parole.
These are the rarest of cases. The other cases have been dealt with in years past, and leniency was given, pleas were given, juries convicted the individuals of lesser crimes. Some of them were dealt with in the juvenile system.
But Eddie Spiller himself insists he's not the worst. In a rare prison interview, I spoke to Spiller on the phone, hopeful that the Supreme Court ruling will one day allow him to see the other side of his prison cell walls.
You know, I don't want people to think that I'm entitled to it because of a court decision. I want to show that I actually deserve a second chance, that I'm not the same teenager that I was, 25 years ago.
That kid had everything going for him, a supportive family, and he did well in school. While in prison, he's earned his GED, mentored new inmates, and is certified in electronics and computers.
I understand the implications of the incident that happened. Mr. Taylor was a loved person in his family, and I acknowledge that, and I was very wrong for that. And now I'm just asking for mercy.
I took my conversation with Spiller to Prosecutor Layton. Layton said Spiller's sentence is under consideration as his office is working to track down the victim's family for their input. But for now, his petition to reinstate a sentence of life without parole stands. The I-Team discovered in Mid-Michigan's two counties with the most cases, Genesee and Saginaw, it's a common theme. Prosecutors want the majority of these juvenile murderers to remain locked up for life. Genesee County is asking 22 of 26 to be resentenced to life. That's 85%. Saginaw County, 95%. Initially petitioning to have all 21 remain locked up for life. Saginaw County Chief Assistant Prosecutor Christopher Boyd said in a statement, "We reserve the right to have them all sentenced to life without parole until such time as we are able to gather all the information necessary to apply those factors." And he went on to say they are working to evaluate each case as some are 35 years old. And just this month, a change of heart from his very office, withdrawing the petition to resentence Henry Hill Jr. to life. Hill committed murder at just 16 years old in 1980. 1980. The now 53-year-old has spent 36 years behind bars. His new sentence, 34.5 years, meaning he's now eligible for parole, making him the first to be resentenced in Saginaw County.
I'm just overjoyed. I cannot believe it's the day I've been waiting for.
Once he's out, Hill's family says the first order of business, take him to McDonald's for a hamburger. A simple freedom most take for granted. A freedom Eddie Spiller hopes will someday become his own reality.
I really haven't had a chance to actually, I guess, live life the way that, Sophia or you are living life now. And so I have a lot of ideas of how I would like to live life, but I don't know if they're realistic in some nature.
It's not too late for the prosecutors in either of those counties to adhere to the rule of law and exercise their discretion. Just because they filed seeking life without parole doesn't prevent them from withdrawing the motion.
Now, in my previous I-Team report on this subject, I featured juvenile lifer James Washington III. He wrote this very essay that was published in the Michigan Review of Prisoner Creative Writing this year. He says it's an honest depiction of his defining moments in prison, from a juvenile lifer to the man that he is today. Now, we've posted his essay on the TV5 homepage, WNEM.com.